Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. My guest today is David Baxter, CEO and founder or chief pixel of uh, of Big Pixel, the Big Pixel Agency, a strategic design and development firm that specializes in user experience, startups, and business software. With David's unique approach, he helps small businesses go beyond their spec sheet to determine precisely what they want, allowing them to grow and thrive using creativity and out of the box thinking. David's actionable tip that he shares in this episode is to approach every situation with transparency and authenticity. It will be the defining character between you and your competition. So, two agency nerds are going to talk about how to make an agency really stand out. It's going to be a great conversation today. David, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the
Yeah.
show.
Thanks so much. It's good to be here.
So, David, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get to where you are today? Tell me a little bit about Big Pixel and how did you become so amazing?
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but thanks. I've been a developer for over 20 years, which I guess makes me old, but I started this with the mixing of design and development. I was one of the guys who got in trouble for choosing icons back in the early 2000s when no one cared about icons. And then slowly but surely, through a career path where I was a consultant for a long, long time, eventually I was able to start working on my passion, which was to merge design and development. I started doing that for some clients, and I got a real taste for working with startups. And then when I started my own firm in 2013, um, that really became our passion, is to really invest and work with startups. And so of course we work with all sorts of businesses, but is our passion, to work with them, help them. And we've worked with, gosh, 25 plus now, over the last 9 years. And we've been doing everything from just advising them and mentoring them all the way to building the entire thing and deploying and supporting it afterwards and helping them with strategy and all of that kind of stuff. So that's really the nutshell of where we came from and what we do now.
What's really interesting is that user design, user experience, UX design is actually what I think one of the unsung heroes of software development, right? Because it is so critical to making things work. And what happens is that if you go down the path of not thinking of how people are going to be using the tool that you are creating, you are literally shooting yourself in the foot and hampering your ability to scale up and to onboard new clients. How do you approach that thought process of how to make something that is a blunt tool and make it into a fine sharp object that people can use and can scale with?
So I think when it comes to user experience, the key part that it sounds so obvious, but it's often forgotten, is just putting yourself in the user's shoes. So if developers in particular they want to build the tool and they want to get there to do A and B as efficiently as possible, which oftentimes isn't necessarily the easiest way for a non-technical person to use said tool. And so that's the mindset you have to put yourself in, is to break the efficiency and the engineering mind of a developer and go into the average, normal, everyday mind of a user. And so that requires sometimes more help, more easy flow, things that aren't necessarily the most efficient, but they show the right way to do it for that specific user base. And you have to choose who you target. If you're targeting women versus men, you're going to do things differently. If you're targeting adults versus children, very clearly differently. Younger versus old, all of those things matter, who your audience is, and you have to speak to that audience. And that's really what I think user experience is finding the right language to speak to your audience. And that can go all over the map, in terms of graphics, to the flow, to the buttons, everything, and the device they're on. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, but that's really what you're kind of boiling down in your cauldron when you're making this magical thing called an app.
What's really interesting is that what is it, about a week ago, dating myself here, but Instagram announced a rather large change to how their app is going to work, and
Hmm.
basically they're going to make it even more video centric as opposed to photo centric,
Hmm.
right? Long story short, it created this whole backlash that Instagram ended up having to walk back. And it's like, well, you know something, we're not going to release everything, so quickly today, right? My question for you is, how do like, if you could have been, a decision maker in that room, how can you, or how can you help a startup not be so myopic with the demands or the needs of your users in order to make such a radical change without pissing them off so easily, right? Like, how does that, I have to imagine that, especially, like, once a user interface has taken hold, it is incredibly hard to get people to change it unless that changes radically for the better, right?
Sure.
You really do need to make sure that you have a great foundation, a great design language to work from, and then build up from there. What was your, or what would be your take, for something like, if a startup decided to make a radical change to their software and, user experience wise, and try to make things better for people, but it just landed wrong?
Well, I think Adobe did a really good job with this. So Photoshop for designers has been the holy grail forever. Photographers, designers, and but its interface is horribly complex. If you're brand new to it, it's a monster, and there's all these upstarts coming up and challenging them for the throne, and a lot of them are really taking serious market share because they're so much easier to use. And I think that people ask, why Adobe, why don't you get easier? And they're like, well, we have 20 years of legacy here, and people expect Photoshop to work a certain way. And each person who uses it only uses 10% of it, but they know that they have the keyboard down, they all that. And if I change that, they would all revolt and they would have a fit. And so the way that they do it is they create new apps such as XD when they came out with that. Like, this could have been done in Photoshop. You could be making front ends, but here is a better way. And they were trying to compete on that way. I think Instagram is desperate. I don't think that's a secret. They're desperate to catch up to TikTok. The TikTok has all the eyeballs, as it were, and everyone wants to be TikTok and rake in that mountain of money. And I think they're in such a rabid chase for that throne that they're leaving their users behind, and they're forgetting what makes Instagram Instagram. People love what Instagram is. Now the problem is the numbers currently, they love what TikTok does more. But the hundreds of millions of people who use Instagram every day, they don't want it to change. They don't want TikTok. They'll open TikTok to watch videos. And that's where it's a weird mix, right? Because Facebook or Meta wants the audience of TikTok, but they have a photo app, right? That's what Instagram was. It was a photo app. And so they're missing that. They're trying to have it both ways. It doesn't work that way. You're going to start really losing things in your search for TikTok. And you can add little things here and there, and that works. Reels has worked pretty well. And that's kind of a minimal TikTok, but they didn't shove off all of Instagram for that. And that's where I think they've done a very poor job. Clearly, they had a big revolt, like you mentioned. They have to know what they're good at and focus and lean into that. What is it that can make Instagram better than TikTok, right? If that's where I think they're missing that conversation. Their blinders are on for video, video, video. But what could you do? My question to them would be, what could you do to make Instagram more sticky without losing the heart of Instagram, which is the photo?
What's interesting is that my wife originally sent me over that. She sends me over this link, with the news item that yeah, all of these Instagram users are up in arms.
Mhm.
And I just read the headline, and the headline was really dramatic. Like, there's this
Sure.
big revolt and the thing. And the only thing that crossed my mind was, and I wrote back to her exactly like this. I'm like, let me post this on my MySpace page, right?
Sure.
Tongue in cheek, right? But all BS aside, MySpace is still a thing. What does it have? Like
It is.
50 million active users per month? Like, oh my God, like, that is not an insignificant number of
Sure.
active users, right? It's just a lot of us, let's call us contemporary marketers here, right? We have moved on from MySpace. Like, I don't even know if I have a MySpace page anymore,
Sure.
right? But we joke about it, right? But the fact of the matter is, it still is around and it's still relevant. It still
It still
has
makes money.
and it still makes money as well.
Yeah, I
So,
think when it comes to that, I think it's funny. Meta and all the headlines you're talking about being dramatic. Facebook missed their numbers for the first time, but they lost 1%. They still are making 99% of all the billions of dollars they made before. and people make it sound like they're about to implode. Come on. It's just
Yeah,
that's not the truth.
they're not imploding anywhere.
They're not going anywhere for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about your one big tip then.
Sure.
Being authentic and transparent, to your users, to your base, to your investors, to the people that you have been called to serve. What does that look like in your world? How do you get people to lean in towards that authenticity and transparency that allows them to really, build up that friendship and build up that partnership that people are looking for when they choose to lean into one app versus another?
Well, I think when people talk about transparency or integrity, it sounds like a buzzword. It sounds like, Tim Robbins is up on the stage and telling you to live your best life or whatever. That's not what I mean. When I say transparency, it should bake into every piece of your business. For example, for us at Big Pixel, when we do a design for you, we're building an app. We say this is what your app is going to look like. We get you excited about it. Gary works very hard on it, and we present it to you, and it looks a certain way, and you approve it. Like we go a couple of iterations, we give it to you, and then we start to build, and we start turning that into code. And I think that the transparency part of this is turning when we finish with it, it should look like the design. The integrity part of it, it should look like the design. It doesn't sound like that's an integrity issue, but this is what I promise. This is uh, what you approved. And most developers get about 80% there and call it a day. And a lot of clients are just fine with that. But the integrity part of it is to commit that we're going to do the extra mile. And it is an extra mile. That last 20% takes 80% of the time, right? That is where we go into the integrity. It's everywhere in your proposals. When you do an estimate and you say it's going to cost X, and you say, I'm not going to raise your rate. I'm not going to. There's a fixed fee project. You have to stick to that, even when it hurts. And that's how you build a relationship. And it goes both ways, right? They're going to reward you and know that you charge your amount and you're worth that amount, that premium probably that you're charging, because you do have integrity, and that is all it's going to cost, and I can budget on that, and I can take that to the bank. That that it, it should bleed right in there, and your whole team should feel that. And I think it's not just a buzzword, it's a way of building your company. Everything with the we price everything fixed fee, again, for transparency, so that if I don't say, oh well, it's 100 hours to do this, and I'm done with 100 hours and I didn't finish, oh now it's 120 hours, which is again time and materials, that's a very common thing. You're not being transparent anymore. You're not holding that line, taking the hard road, as it were, because, and I'm not saying those are bad people. It's just that's just not how their business is set up. To us, transparency is all the way through our core, and everything we do. I mean, if you talk to me for 5 minutes, I have no filter, and so it's very clear that bluntness is my world, and it just pervades everything that we do. And I think that every company who chases that, it can't be a veneer. Everybody says that, and it's really clear, really fast, apparent is the word I'm looking for, that you're not legit. Everyone notices that, right? If it's just a veneer and, oh yeah, we have integrity, we're gonna, we're gonna do the right thing. It's gonna be really clear the first time you don't. And then how do you react when you don't? I mean, life happens, things take longer. What happens when you're caught? Okay, do you have integrity, or are you going to try to go another route? That's hard. That's where the proof is in the pudding. And so it has to be real, or you're going to get laughed out of the room. And I think that's really how you have to focus it.
Walk me through then what that looks like when you have presented a solution to a client, they
Mhm.
accept, and then it works, right? I don't know if you can name names, but if you can, just sort of walk us through, like how, like you guys encountered a sticky situation, and they weren't necessarily happy, with the user experience, or there was room for improvement, and that you were able to solve it. How did that look, like when you approached that problem?
So let's say, I mean, specific names would probably not be ideal, but say we present a solution and we say, okay, this is how it's going to work, and it's going to cost this much money. Okay, we all agree to that. Then now we're going. We've done our research, but we haven't ever done this before. That's very common. What we do by definition is build things that haven't been built before, right? These are startups often, and we're blazing a trail. That's why they are exist, because they want to do something new. So we did some research and okay, we understand this, and we get there, and the understanding that we had was wrong, and it's going to take twice as long, or it's not possible at all. The key for us for transparency is, one, if it's going to take longer, that's on us. If it's really bad, we will come hat in hand, explain the situation, and see if there's something we can work out. But we always leave the option for the client to say, nope, this is your problem. You have to eat it. And we will. But generally, we can come to some sort of agreement if it's really, really awkward, like the API doesn't work or whatever. But if we have to, if it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of this didn't work the way we want, then before we come back, we have a solution to present. It's not just a problem. We try very, very hard never to present a problem without the accompanying solution. Because if we don't do that right, then it just looks like we're whining and we're trying to get more money. That's not the goal. The goal is to get you to a successful end, right? To have a successful business if we're building a startup, to have a successful launch if you're an existing company with a product. That is our goal. So we just have to get there, right? Our goal is to get A to B. Sometimes we have to go the long way to get around, but our goal is always to get A to B. And if we have to take it on the chin, unfortunately, that's the way it works. But oftentimes we can come to an agreement where we're going to do something a little differently. It won't cost you anymore, but we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to change the design, and everyone's happy.
Amazing. Thank you so much for articulating that. That really, that really helped illuminate, I think, how, agencies should be approaching, user experience and how they're developing apps in order to make it better, right? Because at the end of the day, you should be striving to make this tool insanely useful to the
Mhm.
extent where people would be dumb not to use it, right?
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, to just make sure that it's that it does exactly what it says it's going to do, and it does it really, really well. So it doesn't need to do everything. It just needs to do exactly what you set out to do, and make sure that it really accomplishes that. So I appreciate you articulating that for the audience. David, can you please let everyone know how they can learn more about your agency and how they can reach out to you directly if they want to learn more?
Sure. We are all over nowadays. We have a podcast called the Biz Dev Podcast, and we do that weekly. Me and Gary, my creative director. That's on everything that you do podcasts. We are on YouTube. We do little shorts and stuff. We're on Instagram. Let's see. Big Pixel is our YouTube. The Big Pixel or at Big Pixel NC is our Instagram. You can reach me directly at david@thebigpixel.net. I am always available. If you just want to contact us in general, it's hello@thebigpixel.net. And our website, as you can clearly see, is thebigpixel.net.
Amazing, amazing stuff. David, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking about this stuff, and it's been really informative. So thank you for
Great.
joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.